you're focused on one project at a time, so there's more to-dos in that project getting done, which creates the illusion of more getting done. 11:39 a.m. on December 7th or 2nd, 2018, and this is Reflections 21. I am so energized from last week's Reflections new format that I'm just excited to get right into this. Reflections is just a weekly documentation of my life in video form, where I basically just do an AAR, which is an after action review, as well as capture what's going on in my world, what I'm learning, how I'm growing, what I'm going through, did I already say learning? I think I did. What I'm learning, what's on my mind, stuff like that. What worked, what didn't, etc. And I capture it on video form with you guys, and of course to document my history. So without further ado, let's get right into it. What's been on my mind? I've been thinking a lot about how web apps work and all of the processes that go behind the applications that you see. It's we can see these apps, but there's just like so much that goes into it. And while I'm building this NIMSM tracker is what I'm calling it, which is almost finished, thankfully. But while I'm building it, I'm really just thinking about like the best practices, how I'm handling data, what I'm doing wrong, what I'm doing correctly, how I can improve it, optimization of speed and performance and security. And there's so much that goes into these fucking apps. So that's been very top of mind this week. I've been thinking a lot about content as well, specifically about documenting, and how I've done a really shitty job recently of documenting because I've cared too much about perfections. Might touch on this later. But I have so many options, so many ideas in my mind right now, so many methods of execution, and I just have to follow through with those things. I'm just very excited for content land right now. I've also got to do a better job of positioning myself as not an authority, because I'm not, but what I am is just sharing what I'm learning as I go. It's really, if you could sum it up, it's really what it is. What were my favorite wins? One of my favorite things I worked on this week was something called page pagination. And I'm not actually sure about the clear definition of it, but what I do know is like the thing I'm working on is the UI version of actually pagination. So think about Google, okay? A lot of websites do it differently now, but Google is the classic, like at the bottom, you can see Google with a shit ton of O's, and then under each O is a number for the page, right? So you start off with page 1 when you first get to Google and search, and then you can go to the bottom and go to page 2 and it shows the next page, right? But it's divided up into like 10 posts per page. So you're seeing, and it's not actually posts, what are they called? Indexes or whatever. So you're seeing 10 links per page. And on the websites I don't want to do automatic. Like automatic is like what Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all them do. It's good in some ways, not good in others. It really depends on what you're aiming to do. But with what I want to build, I want to have pagination. So I want to be able to go to like page 400 and see X results rather than scrolling down 400 fucking times. So I had to figure out like how I'm going to do this. First off, I had to figure out how many posts, we'll just call it posts for now. How many posts total? Okay, so once you figure out that number, you have to figure out also how many posts per page you want. So you've got those two numbers working together, and then you have to like figure out, I don't know if this is bringing any value explaining this all, but anyways, I crafted exactly what would go on in like a Google sense or at that bottom in a UI, and just did a shit random calculations and all this shit to create this little like UI that shows like the active page, and it'll change depending like the numbers beside. So it could be like page 8 or whatever, and it would only show like 6 and 7 before it, and what did I say? Yeah, 8, and then 9 and 10 after, and then like I had to do conditional ones where it would be like if it was at 0, it wouldn't show anything before, or if I was at, or sorry, 1, I was thinking in code there. There's 0, you start counting at 0 in code, by the way. And if it was at the end, I wouldn't show the end, and like all types of random stuff. But I was so glad to actually finally take the time to build it. It's been something I've been meaning to do for such a long time. By the way, I'm noticing that the light is changing a lot. This should be interesting as this goes on. Let me check the lighting real quick. But yeah, very pleased to have built this. I just love building things that I've wanted to build for a long time, and that was definitely one of them. Another awesome win was taking the time to if you're creating a post versus editing a post. And I keep calling it post. I'm not actually referring to post, but it's just an easy way of thinking about it if you don't know specifically what I'm talking about. So for example, on like a Facebook or whatever, you have a create post button, you've got an edit post button once it's created. So you can access the existing post and then change things. For me on the website or on the web apps I'm creating, I want to have a very similar UI in editing and in adding. So creating and in updating. And I just figured out some like really simple things to make the editing process be as the same component as the creating process. So I don't have to write an entire new, or I don't have to copy and paste an existing component. I can just toggle a few things, modify a tiny little things based on the state of the component, and I just have an editing component. I'm very pleased with that. Man, I just fucking got a lot of shit done on NimSem Tracker. Felt really good. Just all types of random stuff, like built the auth, though the auth was more of a copy and paste thing, but man, so many things. Client creator, client types, and all the conditional logic based on that. The backend shit, sessions, fetching, the lists of sessions. Actually, wait, did I do that? I did do that, I think. The previous, all types of random stuff. Fuck. Oh, I loved the pop-up also. Yeah, the confirmation box. Love that. Just like the little quick, like, I never thought about this, how important it is to have a confirmation box come up when you save changes to just like basically tell you, by the way, you're overwriting changes. Are you sure you want to do this? And just really just taking the time yesterday to quickly build that, just design pseudocode, then code, and set it up for functionality. It's good to go, and I'm pleased. And I love building shit like this because I know anytime I build something like that, same with the pagination, I automatically can add it to everything else I'm building if I choose to. So that's always bringing me so much joy. What worked? No phone for 5 days straight. Yeah, I did a separate video on this that you can go watch, and it should be the previous video before this. But I went without social media and texting for 5 fucking days. It felt really good. I was in my own little world. It's good to be back now to like social media life, if you will. But it was really nice. It was very cleansing. Gained a lot of clarity. Got a lot of peace of mind, etc. Loved that. Felt great. I also saved so much time, and within that time got a lot of shit done, thankfully. Focusing on only one key project with maybe like a side project or two, if they're minimal time. This was very key for me. My main project this week was NimSem Tracker. And usually I would have multiple main projects, which is like NimSem Tracker, lists, Infinity, etc. And it just got like out of hand. And I wanted to experiment with focusing again. And it felt so fucking good. Like, everything moves so much faster because you're laser focused, and it has its negatives as well. But I really just enjoyed the act of focusing on only one project at a time. And my side projects, I guess you could call them, were content and working out. I think that's fair to say, because like even in working out, it goes beyond that with like the food and all of that shit. So there's a lot that goes into fitness, but I am just very pleased that I worked out with one project per time. This is super random, but changing my background to something that's blue on my phone. I had an orange one before, and orange can be good, but there's something just about blue that I just like so much more. Oceans, skies, even space, if I think it's technically blue. Stuff like that I just love so much. I think I have like mountains right now, and there's just like a blue undertone to it. I don't know why, but it makes me feel so much better. What didn't work, and how can I improve it? I barely produced any content. I was on such a slow fucking thing, specifically because of two key things. Number one, my phone was full, and like I got into this awful trap of Google Photos. I wanted to upload to Google Photos, but I had to download videos to Google Photos from iCloud because they had to be the originals, not the quick versions. And that was interesting because they took up so much fucking space that it became this cycle of no uploading because there was no space left, and it was like partially downloaded videos and all that jazz. So that was fucking annoying as hell. And then Magic Bullet Look stopped working, and it was just glitching out hard. So it was just like this cycle of just nothingness for content, and it just got irritating as fuck. So key things here to take away in the future: don't keep my iCloud so fucking full, because keeping my iCloud full was basically the reason this all fucked up. And my iPhone became full because it was full of storage. So that's one thing. Number two, upload to Google Photos more frequently so I don't have to go through this like trying to download every video mess. It just becomes a very quick clusterfuck in my phone. And also just being okay with making an imperfect color correction. Like, I didn't also realize how good lessons. I didn't realize how good, that was a fucking Freudian slip right there, because I was thinking about, should this be in lessons? But I didn't think about how good the Premiere default color corrections can be if you use the right thing. I think I used like a try something. I forget what it's called, but I made a good color correction, or at least I think it's good. And I'll be using that for Reflections 17 and on until I can get Magic Bullet Looks working. But it's just about using what you have when you have it, and doing the best you can. It's not going to be always perfect. Who fucking cares? Life goes on. Nothing really matters that much. That's it. Caring too much about the content of what I'm about to say, and trying not to offend people, and all of this bullshit around conversation. And I think it just comes from the root thing of what I just said right there, which is caring too much about the content. And context dictates all. You could, like, the content means nothing compared to the context. If the intentions are correct, all else works out. And I've just cared too much recently about the content. I found myself like, just, there's a lot to do on on conversations wise for me right now. I feel like I'm in this place where I don't know, I just don't want to like sit there and bullshit with people. It's a waste of time. Like, I don't like it. I would much rather go deep, and I don't know if people can handle deep like I can, or my deep friends, if people can. So it's just a little bit irritating, but because I feel like I don't want to make people feel uncomfortable in conversations, but I don't want to be bored in a conversation. So yeah, that's my like go-to, what do you call it? My actionable, if you will, from this is either ignore the fact that, or like care less, or just choose to educate myself more on conversational techniques or what have you, or just get even clearer on my intent so I feel better about things. There's many different action steps I can take towards this, but things with most people have to change conversationally, and I've just got to be a bit more okay with it, period. I've been checking my phone too often, and even though I've only had my phone on for like 2.5 days out of the fucking 7 or whatever, it's a fucking deadly game when I start to check my phone in between tasks or even during tasks that I'm doing. It's very it can really suck your energy. You can start to look for validation externally, and that's a fucking ending game right there, because like how to suck your energy 101 is let someone else dictate your validation. It's fucking awful. But man, yeah, it's a dangerous game to play. So instead of doing something like that, it's better to just create or not even create, do tasks that you know are going to energize you with that same like craving, if you will. So for me, a very quick substitution is, instead of checking my phone, I go and listen to a podcast, or I read an audiobook, listen to an audiobook, or I read a book, or I set my power list for the day, or I mean, I wouldn't at that time because it's fucking midday that I'm checking my phone, but things like that, man. There's so many random things we can do to push us forward rather than phone slows down, I'm not gonna lie. So that's something I'd like to keep in mind going forward. What were my biggest lessons? I realized this week that I've been caring too much about perfection in regards to documenting. And you know, this is one of my favorite fucking words. I use it all the time because it's something that's always top of mind. And I realized, like, well, for one, I'm not doing a good enough job of it recently. And I realized that I think the root cause is literally from perfectionism. Something as simple as my room being messy would have in the past stopped me from recording like this. Like, I have stuff everywhere right now. It's pretty, it's not the messiest, but it's not clean, that's for sure. And that would have stopped me in the past from making content. I talk about this a little bit in my no phone day video. And yeah, I realized that nothing really matters so long as you're bringing value. It doesn't need to be this perfect fucking thing. And I don't have to, if it really comes out bad, I don't have to fucking post it. But the takeaway that I can remind you all and remind myself of here is just like, perfection is so fucking stupid. No one actually cares about perfection as much as we do. Though, I mean, there might be. But typically, most people just look for value rather than this perfect thing. And if they do look for that perfect thing, they're probably having a tough time just like existing in general, because they're constantly judging them. It depends on how you look at it. You can still, I wonder if you can look at it in a way where it's like observing without judging in terms of perfection. But I find that many times people who are perfectionists are very judgmental of themselves and others, and that must be very fucking hard. And I can say that because I've been there. So yeah. To reset my sleep schedule, an alternative method is to pull an all-nighter. That seems like awful advice on face value, but if you realize how bad I am at going to bed early, this is the fucking way right here to make it all happen. I went to bed at 10 a.m. on... Wait, no, didn't went. I woke up at 10 a.m., okay? And I stayed up till 10 p.m. the next day with 2.5 hours of sleep in between. Granted, my brain turned to fucking mush by the end and I could barely do anything, so I had to like watch a movie to keep myself up, but it worked. Like, I got up early, I went to bed early, I think 6:30 a.m. yesterday, 7:30 a.m. today, and I went to bed at 10:30 last night, and the night before 9:30. So 9 hours each night needed because of that sleep deprivation that occurred during that all-nighter. But if I'm gonna do an all-nighter, it works. And ideally, if I'm needing to work out on the day, so like if I needed to work out the day after, does that make sense? The day after the all-nighter, if you will, that I have to ideally put at like 1 a.m. in that like time frame, so I don't get weak, because that is the key part right there. You start to like lose your fucking strength as the time goes on. So be very cautious of that aspect of it. And you'll eventually just want to crash. Like, I wanted to crash at like 5 p.m., but I wasn't done my power list yet. So that was what was holding me back from that. And ideally you sleep a shit ton of hours after that. Ideally more than 9. I would say probably fucking 11, 12 maybe in the future. That's what I'm going to try. And then to make it even better and do less of this 36-hour thing that I did, it's better if you fucking wake up at like 5 p.m. and then go to bed at like 5 p.m. the next day or something like that. I realized how much how enjoyable it is to be in your own little world when you're not on your phone. And like, I just love that so much. I do crave these times where I can just go off my own little world, and there's such a time for self-reflection, pondering. We get so much noise in our head from social media that if you don't take the time to correct and do a little bit of the opposite, I'm sure it can really fuck people up. And I mean, people are pretty fucked up. So I can imagine, and not on a like human level, but just like a lots of stress, lots of anxiety, stuff like that. People are still good in their core, but like they are pretty wired, if you will. And I find that 5 days, I mean, even 1 day is just so fucking helpful as a nice reset to get away from everything and just like, man, going in your own world is so fulfilling. 2 key documenting lessons. Number 1, if I start thinking about it as, and literally saying the words, creating content, it feels so much more pressured than just documenting. Documenting is like just recording what is. Creating feels like I have to do or be something extra than normal. It's not necessarily true, but that's kind of like an association I have that is a lesson idea when I'd like to change it, so I can just say creating rather than documenting. But that like mind shift has helped me reduce the pressure of when I'm recording, knowing that I don't have to I'm just recording what is. And that is really all my videos are, but if I start thinking about it as you're creating, that is when I start to think about things a little bit differently, and not in the best way necessarily. The other lesson is to keep a guideline for when I'm creating content. It's super nice to be able to quickly go into your notes app on I go on my iPhone 5, and I never traded this in, thankfully. I don't trade in phones for some reason, so I just have a fucking collection of random phones. Some work, some don't. Side point. Anyways, having these guidelines, so I plug it into Apple Notes, if you will, and then I can create it on my iPhone 10 first, and then I can access it on here via iCloud, and at that point I'm able to quickly start recording on my iPhone and check to make sure I'm covering the right points. And I don't need this, but it really helps me tie up my videos more and keep me focused and aligned on what the mission is for that given piece of content. So I recommend that. It also works with freestyling. Some of my favorite videos are freestyling, but especially at the end, it can be really ideal to bring up all the points and just like summarize. And that is super fucking helpful for that, in addition to what I've already said about it. Side note on lessons. I try not to share like code lessons because I feel like on weeks like this where I'm only coding really, I don't have as many philosophical lessons, if you will. So I try not to share like the dirt too much, and I try to share more, almost like mindset lessons, if you will, because I know that can be widely applicable to all people rather than just some fucking heavy code shit. So that's why there's so few lessons this week. And I ended up covering a lot of the things I wrote down in lessons in other topics. So that's what's up. What challenges did I experience? My skin is so fucking dry. My face is so, it's actually not my skin. What it is from my neck up, I am just dry as shit. Like I'm struggling with dandruff right now. I'm struggling with my lips being dry as fuck. It's not fun. I do not enjoy it at all. I'm not sure what I'm doing in this aspect whatsoever. And this is a lot to do still. I don't know what the fuck I just said. Where did I grow the most? Focusing on one project and my no phone days. So for 5 days. Both of those helped me so much. Focus specifically because I'm so used to doing multiple projects at once, and to really zero down on one project was just like, it really showed me how much more enjoying that is, or how much more enjoyable that is rather. And I would like to do that more going forward, and continue this because I feel like I'm getting a lot more done. It's actually the same, but what it is different is because you're so laser focused, it's just you're focused on one project at a time, so there's more to dos in that project getting done, which creates the illusion of more getting done. It would be the same as multiple projects, but this at least is moving faster on one project, so I can go to another project later, and I don't know, it just feels better, and it's allowing me to grow in that aspect. For the no phone days, like, it's just a test of discipline about how or who owns what. Do I own my phone, or does my phone own me? And or control, who controls what? Does my phone control me, or do I control my phone? And I feel like a lot of people are controlled by their phones and not in control of it. And if you are in control, if you aren't in control, I suggest you start out with doing what I do every day, which is 4 hours without phone to start, because I care about myself enough that I by the way, there's fucking exceptions to this, but I feel like if you really value your mornings, which you should, because your mornings dictate your day, and if you value your mornings and your career is set up in a way where you can do this, and I'm pointing at my bed right now because I'm just thinking about my morning. Make sure you take the time to punt social, and allow that time to be for yourself. Allow that time to learn. Allow that time for you to invest in yourself. Allow that time for you to hit your power list. Just to put yourself first, because if you don't put yourself first, you're going to fucking break. So that always needs to come first. And how did this relate to me growing? That ended up just being like a fucking teachable moment, I guess. But oh yeah, the fucking discipline to stay off my phone for fucking 5 days. And I obviously use my phone for like tools and stuff like that, but I wasn't on social media or texting. And yeah, just really a lot of discipline, even though I did want to check it at times. What am I obsessed with right now? I'm obsessed with Tizoki. Man, I got to see Tizoki at Base Ship back in early October, but and I'd wanted to see him for an entire year before that. I think it was September. No, it was midsummer last year. I think it was like August or whatever I discovered Tizoki, and I've been quite addicted ever since. He is such an insanely talented producer. And actually, fuck the word talent, skilled, because he wasn't born like that. He worked at it, and this is like year 8, I think, for him. Year 8 or 9 or something like that. But man, I'm loving his shit right now so much. He just came out with a new EP, and what is it called? Everybody Dies. Great fucking title. And specifically in love with Push It and All Like That. And these two songs I've literally looped so much in the past week. Push It is at like probably at 80 plays right now, maybe more. And All Like That is, I think, around there as well. But man, like, I looped both of those into my top 5 for most ever played. That's fucking hilarious. And in the top 25, I think I have 7 Tizoki tracks now. Man, I'm just in love with Tizoki. I love his music. It's such a good contrast, because I was getting sick of dubstep earlier this week, and it's just such a refreshing sound in the world of a very generic sound at times. So I love the tracks, and I've been looping them so much. It's so fucking amazing. Tizoki, you're the fucking shit, and I love your music. Guys, thanks so much for watching. This has been Reflections 21. If you found value in this, if there was a takeaway, if this brought you entertainment or motivation or education or what have you, if you could do me a favor, share it with a friend. Like, comment, subscribe, follow. I don't know, whatever is the engagement on your platform. Would love if you could join me on my journey, and yeah, that'd be awesome. I don't really know what else to say. My name is Josh from Moxey, and I'll catch you next week for Reflections 22.